Welcome back to Daytime Ottawa. This is probably going to be a bit of a therapy session for myself. I'm not going to lie. You know, I think you know how it is, though, when you go on vacation and you come back and you have a whole bunch of emails that you need to return, or your schedule starts getting, of course, busier in those early days, or just like we have right now, Ramadan happening, Passover, Easter coming up as well, and people start getting stressed out as their schedules get a little bit busier. Well, my next guest is going to give us some great tips and advice when it comes to overcoming some of those stresses. Stefanie Holmden, she is a social worker with the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Centre. Welcome, Stefanie.
Great
to have you here.
Yeah.
Why do we get so stressed in these kinds of environments, do you think?
So that's a very big question.
Yeah.
I think I really like to ground people in knowing what stress feels like.
Okay.
So we use a really big umbrella word, like I'm so stressed. And I have people really tune into, are you not sleeping? Are you feeling irritable? Are you feeling kind of panicky or anxious? And if we ground ourselves there, then we can really kind of move forward. When it comes to events, when it comes to you returning from vacation, I kind of see it as a wave, right? Whatever event is going to be happening, we have this point of anticipation.
Right.
So we're really kind of maybe feeling the light feelings. Maybe we're not sleeping. Maybe we're over planning. Maybe we're saying things like, I should be doing this, or statements like, what if? So we're getting into that worry territory. And then as the event comes a little bit closer, that starts to intensify. And then of course we have the event, and maybe we're really feeling the intensity of that. People around us, maybe we have some social anxiety, maybe really there's tension in the family, right? That we don't always talk about. And if we see it as that wave, we can kind of anticipate it a little bit. Especially when it really comes to those should statements and what if. Those are big ones that I hear. Have you ever said that?
Oh, listen, you sound like my dad talking to me right now, because my dad is a big proponent of the fact, as you just said, the what if, and why are we worrying about something that we don't know is going, if it's even going to occur.
Yes.
And we do that to ourselves, and we carry it for such a long period of time, Stefanie, right?
It's quite punishing that when when someone says, I should, that immediately for me speaks to expectation, and usually a higher expectation.
Yeah.
And when we don't meet that, we criticize ourselves. So we're cruel.
And I think do you think, Stefanie, too, it's expectations we feel other people are putting upon ourselves?
I love that you said that. Yes. So often it's either family, maybe what we think we should be doing for children, or society. We're told a lot on social media what we should be doing, what an expectation should be. And when we don't meet that, then again, it really kind of goes quite deep. And we're just unkind.
Yeah, and another thing around, that focus on holidays is that, some of us are doing them alone, right? We're isolated. You and I spoke in the green room briefly, and I said, we've all, I think, through the pandemic have felt what isolation can be like. Well, for many people, that isolation happens quite frequently. What do you suggest, when you see other people celebrating and you're not part of those celebrations, how does that affect our mental health, and how can we help ourselves through that?
Well, and there's a few different parts there. One, definitely celebrations and what that might look like. If you're away from family, maybe you have a smaller caring community. Maybe, you're isolated in other ways, or maybe things have just changed for you, right, as groups evolve. Grounded in awareness. If we have no idea that we're feeling a sense of lowness, if we're feeling that sense of low energy, low motivation, then we don't quite know where to go. To me, I always think when we're feeling low, it's almost our body's desire to have a sense of belonging.
Yeah. And
there's two different ways we can go about that.
Okay.
One is kind of going beyond self-care, almost like a radical reinvention of how we nurture ourselves. So we say, okay, what do I need right now? Okay, am I needing to be around people? Maybe I'll go to something that's happening in the community. Maybe I'm gonna go to a coffee shop. Actually having those little micro interactions and building upon them can lessen it. Here's the other tip.
Okay.
I tell people the goal is not to eradicate the feeling, it's to soften it.
Right.
We're always trying to get rid of anxiousness, get rid of low mood, and that's a really high expectation. And so if we look to soften it, then some of these other tips might work a little bit better.
Right.
The other one is for externally, so for you, for me, to look around our groups. Is there someone who could, where we might want to reach out and even say like go for lunch or whatever that might be, as a point of like more community building. So that we're not always putting that focus on the individual to go and find, but that we're also kind of nurturing in our community of like looking around and saying, hey, let's bring people in.
Yeah, and a sense of belonging can also, I guess, lead to a sense of accomplishment if perhaps you do something like volunteering, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes, I think when we think of isolation, like, we tell people things that we think is really simple. Well, just find a hobby and go and meet somebody. Well, hobbies aren't always easy, but what is easy is finding perhaps a volunteer opportunity out there. Right?
That's such an important point because, just like when we say the word stress, when we say go find, sometimes that's like a huge barrier, right?
Absolutely.
And you're like, but I can't find, like that's my barrier. So being able to, yes, do volunteering. The other piece too, if we go back to that wave that I find sometimes people forget, is that we think that as soon as the event is done, that everything's going to go back to normal.
Right.
And that if we're looking at anticipation, the event, the other part is actually decompression. Whether that happens to do with meditating, rest, whatever that is for you. Maybe doing more activities to like recognize that we're not about getting rid of things or the expectation that things will just like stop.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
thank
right.
goodness that's over. That's not a way to enjoy any kind of event, activity, gathering of any kind.
Right.
Stefanie, thanks so much for joining us. This has been great advice. Really appreciate the time. We'll be back with more right after this.